Uh, can we rise and pledge allegiance here? Recorded.
It is. It says recording up there at the top.
I don't think my mic's on.
Oh,
There you go.
I'm new.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
There's Henry. Are you Henry?
No, that's Gary.
Yeah, that's our
Yeah.
attorney.
Henry and Gary are here.
Okay, thank you, thank you. This is Randy Thomas, the commission chair, and welcome. We have the itinerary here on our next, we have 7 steps that we're going to. Do we need to present a comments from anyone?
Are you asking for public comment just on a
Yes.
general basis?
Yes.
You can certainly call for it if there's anyone in attendance or online. It's kind of number 4 there on your agenda.
I'll change it to the agenda.
No, it's listed at item number 4 is public comment.
Ours says changes to the agenda. We don't have a public comment written down on our agenda.
No, not at all on either one.
What's the date at the top of your agenda? Where it says
Oh.
public notice?
Yeah, October 3rd, Thursday.
Oh.
Workshop agenda.
Okay, so I'm looking down at the second page. This is what is on your website, and item 4 says public comment. It says call to order,
wow.
pledge of allegiance.
That was for August 7th.
Yeah.
You're reading August 7th minutes.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that was on the,
Oh, I see. I
Also-
see. Okay, so yeah,
correct.
yeah, you can certainly call for public comment. Yeah, it's not on your agenda there. I see on the front of the first page.
Okay, well, we're gonna make sure we put that and change it to the agenda that we always have that. As the commissioner.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. I was looking at the wrong page.
Okay. If for in the future, we can put this as a item. Okay.
Yeah, and it's generally you call for comment for something that's not on the agenda item, and then something that's going to be talked about. Generally, they wait until that topic comes up.
Oh, I hear, okay.
Was it just missed, Mr. Chair?
Apparently it was
On our
Mr.
agenda.
It looks like it was missed.
Again,
Yes.
something, okay.
We're needing to probably get our agendas a little more under control, more on a timely basis. I'm getting the consensus of the commission to have our paperwork done sooner, at least a week advance. We should. I think that's a safe thing to say so that the commissioners can have an opportunity to go through it before the regular meeting, whether it be the workshop or the regular commission meeting. Is that just something that I'm in balance in saying? Whether.
Yeah, if you're asking for if you're asking for my opinion, yes, 7 days is usually the standard when packets are published,
So we
and I
need
can
to get
certainly
that.
I can accommodate that with the city manager.
Okay, good. It's frustrating for us, I'm noticing, and we just want to get clean and so that we can feel that we're getting some things achieved without being bogged down.
Sure.
So I'm pretty sure it's just a simple, but it would make it really easier for us to, as a commissioner, as commission, to get our jobs done. Instead of last minute items, that we're called on, and we only have an hour and a half out of each month, basically, to make decisions. So I think this time it'd be a little more intelligent for us to be more proactive. I see on our agenda, and I think, Henry, are you looking at that with us?
Yeah, I see items 1 through 7.
Okay,
Yep.
and so on number 4, changes to the agenda, I was understanding that there was a meeting the other night with the city council concerning changes to agenda. And on our changes to agenda, I'm trying to figure out what is it that is going to fulfill that request, changes to the agenda, meaning today's agenda. I'm asking questions.
And Gary, you can please fill me in. So if, for example, if a commissioner wants to add a topic to the agenda for the evening or remove a topic, they can call for a motion to amend tonight's agenda.
Okay. Does the other commissioners have any questions?
Say that again.
Henry, can you please repeat
Request.
that?
Yeah, so it's basically a commissioner, wants to add an item for discussion or remove an item, so they can make a motion and second it, and if it passes, that you can amend your agenda basically on the fly to add or remove something from your discussion at that particular meeting.
Okay. So I'm going
Thank
to
you.
request or have a thought here. Is there any commissioners that have any questions about changes to the agenda? Carl? No? David?
No,
Okay. Well, moving quite all along here. We have our agenda as an action item, and we're approving the agenda of today's agenda. Is that correct?
Correct.
last month,
No,
no, this month.
because if there was a change, then we'd have a motion to approve.
Number 5 says as presented, and then number 6 says August 7th, is how I understand it.
Okay.
I understand too that as approve the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second? I'll second. Okay, all in favor?
Discussion.
Oh, discussion? Is there discussion?
Yeah, this
Okay.
is the third time in a month that our packets are incomplete. 3 times in a row.
And she did leave out.
And last month it was because of the temp, was our city manager's excuse. I thought our city manager recorder was in charge of our packets. So I would like to see this corrected ASAP.
Well, to go along with what you just said, item 6 says approved August 7th, 24 minutes.
But we haven't done
What
September.
happens is that's September 5th.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, maybe they're not ready yet, but yeah, good point.
We should be approving the September minutes, not August minutes.
Okay, well, let's do our, any other discussion about number 5, approving the agenda? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed, nay.
Okay, 3 nay, yeas and 1 nay. Okay, now on our 6th line here, it's our approval of, it says August 7th, which were brought up just recently of Commissioner Carl, about the September 5th minutes. Was this an error or a slip up? I believe that we approved the minutes on September the 5th for October. For August the 7th. So on September the 5th, we approved, I believe, the minutes for August the 7th. And that the minutes should read instead, should we approve the minutes on September 5th. Would that require changing of the agenda or just a correction?
I would say a correction. I don't think if you've already accepted the minutes from your August meeting, I would just kind of state that and make the record known and then direct staff to bring you back September meeting minutes at your next meeting and October if they are ready. So for November, you'd be looking at September and October.
Okay. Henry, I don't know.
Well, I guess I have a question. Is someone in this at City Hall transcribing meeting minutes for this meeting tonight?
Yes, we
Yes,
have
okay,
our Amanda.
Okay, great. Okay, I thought so. I just wanted to make sure.
Oh, yes.
She's awesome.
She's moving.
She's awesome.
Okay, so if there's any questions concerning that, are we okay with the idea of the minutes being approved on the November or September, October?
In November, we should approve September and October's.
Yes. Yes, I just see that this is something that we need to tighten up real quick. That we do have issues. I understand that the past several months have been a little crazy with changeovers and changing of managers and the different parts of the commissions and the council. So I'm hoping that this is something that we're all working together to get a consensus, even it out so that we don't make this a topic each time we meet here. Okay. I have a question and on numbers, are we okay then on the minute? We're okay with that? We already approved?
Approved for number 6.
Yes?
Have to make a motion for it.
Okay, make a motion. Is there a motion out for that number 6?
It's already been done
Okay,
for August 7th. It was done in September.
for today's and
I make a motion that in November, we will approve the minutes of September and October meeting minutes.
okay. Is there a second? Okay, any further discussion?
Fine. But,
Okay,
vote,
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
no.
All right, now we're going on to number 7, and that is a rule on the storage container interpretation. And I'm pretty sure we have Gary and Henry who can help us out a lot with this. I know that during our
Yep.
last commission, we had some issues where we felt that I guess we didn't get the whole picture, nor did we follow the right protocol. I jumped the gun and I apologize. I take complete responsibility for that and willing to make sure that we can get over it and look at better correction, how I can do better along with the commission. And how we can get this interpretation and the technique or the item, how we're gonna do this. I know that we had a paper that was given to us. And let me.
Did we ask to have one page rewritten? For interpretation was bad for interpretation on shipping containers and permissible accessory structures on page 3. That we got last month. September 5th.
But this is on September the 18th, and this was to, for Gary, our city attorney. And the question was, are shipping containers legitimate accessory buildings in the residential district? And the answer was no. And the discussion, each of you got one of the information, and did you all read it? Did you understand it, all of it?
Yes.
That you now have a our city attorney and Henry here, which I hope you'll, and thank you for your guidance, to give us the proper ideas of how to interpret and what we can do and what we can't do. And if there is any fudging on any of it, meaning if it's a storage container versus a shipping container, and the size of the item, whether it's under 200 feet, and used as not as a living building, but as a storage unit. I'd like to open that up for discussion, for questioning, and we may ask Gary, what is our legality to this? Is there ways that, is it pretty black and white?
Well,
And that's-
I'm having trouble hearing, but what you can't do is discuss specifics of a land use application without proper notice. So the memo that was written was a sort of a legislative interpretive memo. It wasn't aimed at any specific proposal that you might or already have heard. I was just trying to address the general question.
So we're taking the background information in case this comes up again. So are we just taking this as basically a background information in case this comes up again and somebody else wanting one? Or how are we to interpret this memo?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question clearly.
Gary, I heard it. I can answer. Yes. So this is meant for kind of your knowledge and awareness when this question does come up again, and I'm sure it will. And Gary, correct me if I'm wrong, but someone should, the planning commission should either accept or reject this interpretation as their official interpretation on this issue. So someone could make a motion to accept the interpretation of whether a shipping container is a legitimate accessory building in the residential district. The answer is no, because of the interpretation by the city attorney.
Yeah,
Well, then how-
and let me add something. If it's the planning commission's desire to allow shipping containers to serve as accessory uses, what I would recommend is that you propose changes to the zoning ordinance and specifically address under what circumstances a shipping container would be allowed in the residential district. So you could specify color, size, conformity with the primary structures, architecture, that sort of thing. That's
Okay,
if
so
you
that-
think it's appropriate.
Okay, so at this time, the way it is written, its interpretation, it shows that there's no way for this to be there unless we change the interpretation. Meaning that, yeah,
Well, maybe what you could do is you say you accept the interpretation, but when you, in your motion, until such further time when the planning commission takes this matter up and as an action item and discusses whether or not to amend the zoning code to make these permissible under certain circumstances. So this would stand until that happens.
Which is probably a good idea because as I did my research this week, there are 25 various size shipping containers within the residential zone district. And then there's numerous ones within the general commercial and not to mention storage units at Osprey. So I think that this would be a thing that we'd want to look into, otherwise half of our town is in violation. Including a mayor candidate right now who just brought in a 40-foot one in her front yard. Not me. I already have one, but it's over there.
what side is it?
I have a 8x20. The other lady that just brought one in has probably a 10x40 that was just brought into her backyard.
I'm always understanding that, and it's fine, and I know whether it be a storage container or as you go along the roads, there's these pop-up things, and they all seem to be, these sheds, portable sheds. They all seem to be having, a lot of it is 10x20 to meet the code, building a building of a sort of structure for their home. Of course, it is all still has to be location. We know that we can't put nothing out front like that. But if it's in the back and if it's in an area, but I know that that's what caused even myself to build a building that I wanted bigger, but came down to the 200 square feet because it did not require a permit. So the idea is to, I know that these containers, it's as far as Commissioner Coates just said, there's quite a few of these existing issues. And whether we have to just say that's okay instead of them taking it out. I mean, it is going to be a little toughy, but I think going through this idea of going up and making a point to go over it and redo it so that we can keep the big ones from coming and find ways that 200 square foot or less can be acceptable. Especially if they're built with, again, with the structure of the home, whether it's mills with it, that it's going to be, if everything's brown, it should be brown, not pink. That kind of idea too, I guess. So I just want to know what the steps, is there 2 or 3 steps to do this? Is it a long-term idea that you both think is going to happen? Is there any potential snag on this? Or is it can just matter of being procedural that we can get this done? And that was my question. To whether Henry or Gary.
Henry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, so it sounds like they are considering amending the code to make certain shipping containers acceptable in Lakeside. They want to attach some conditions to them. So the actual large giant shipping containers don't come to Lakeside. They might want them to look a certain way, be a certain color, match the house, and so forth. So they're just wondering, procedurally how they go through that. And I think they do like a type 4 text amendment.
Yeah. The other thing that we haven't really addressed is a definition of what a shipping container is. And that would be the starting point of any discussion. And, one way of dealing with it is to make a shipping container a specific use in itself, define it, and put it in the conditional use section of the residential zoning regulations.
Okay, I think we can say that's a good movement. Carl?
Well, I was just going to say, I believe all these companies that are selling these containers are labeling them as storage containers. I don't think any of them are saying shipping containers. I think they're all saying storage containers. I think once they have them and they're removed from the docks, they're no longer shippers.
And since I own one, there's certain, when they come in and they're decommissioned and they're sold to people, they have to remove certain labels and they have to make sure that they have, there's a little plaque inside that tells you that it's met like their safety codes and stuff like that, but they're not selling, decommissioned, torn up ones. There's like a set checklist thing that they have to do. And
And that's probably, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And they are growing in popularity right now because you can pick up a 10x20 shipping container for about $5,000, and to build a building of the same size is about $11,000. I have both, just to inform you. So they are gaining popularity, but from what I saw driving around town this week, nobody's living in them. People are just using them as a cheap storage alternative because you can make them so they're airtight, they don't allow moisture, things like that.
So we make some sort of, idea where there can only be used one per home, one per address, instead of trying, in other words, there's various things we're gonna have to do to protect it. Being the amount of them that can be put in a house, in an area, if they are, going to be okay with the surrounding, neighbors.
Put them in the backyard instead of the front.
Yes, you know, put them in the backyard and not you, and make sure that they are specifically for storage and not to make these as a ADU, which is a whole different thing. I just like to kind of keep this in, is that would be, you know, for storage.
And that would be just normal use by definition. Ordinance is they can't be used for anything other than a normal use, and a normal use would be for storage. And they're being sold as a storage container.
So I mean, this idea is not like putting a sheep skin over a wool kind of like idea, you know what I mean? In other words, we're gonna call it something else, but it is actually, you know, what we want it to be is the storage unit. Especially with the size. I still think the size of less than 200 square feet is very, very good. Or if they have to do bigger, make it a part where the permit to have it is going to be cost prohibitive in one way or another. So I just didn't want to make this a point where we're going to be having inundation of storage units going all over. But that is something, again, that people are doing. They're bringing all of these units into these areas. Sarah just mentioned that there's X amount of them. It'd be nice to take a survey of how many there are.
There's a whole bunch more on the lake, but they don't count as lakeside city properties. I mean, our city hall has one sitting right back there for Dixie for her food pantry.
Way.
So I'm hoping that you can hear us, that I just don't want this to be a can of worms. Is this going to be something that's going to be kind of difficult to get going? Or are we putting ourselves out there that we can't possibly have any answer to getting it accomplished?
Gary, do you have
So
any
the
thoughts on that one?
Well, the more definitive your definition of a storage container or unit and when it's appropriate, the less issues or problems you're going to have down the line. I think one thing you need to do is be able to distinguish them from your normal accessory structure. But you can be very specific in terms of defining what a storage container is, how large, where it can be placed, whether it has to be painted, for instance, to be consistent with the primary dwelling on that property, things like that. And the narrower the definition, the less problems you'll probably face down the road. What do you think, Henry?
Yeah, I think that's right on. And if the planning commission does want to continue this discussion and look at amending the code to adopt some standards in relation to shipping containers and storage units, then maybe it might be useful for the chair to maybe appoint someone to kind of take that on as a special project and kind of do the research and bring it back to the planning commission for another work session as to kind of what they found and things that they can consider for Lakeside. And of course, myself and Gary can assist in that manner, but it's generally best if that kind of legwork is done by the planning commission itself to kind of take ownership of it.
Yes, yes. I think Sarah, who's been one of our large people who do a lot of the construction and installations, has, I believe, a very good background, and that would help it. So I would like to think that if it doesn't burden her, that maybe she would like to take that on.
Might be involuntary.
Yes, I volunteer, Sarah, and then bring it back to us within a realistic time. Would you say you'd be ready in November?
Yeah, I can work out something.
Okay.
It gets me through the Halloween season.
We put this on our agenda for maybe November, our next November meeting.
Do we have to have any public meetings to change it?
I think right now we're just.
Yeah,
We're-
once you get down to that point, yeah, you will. But right now, you're kind of just formulating what it's gonna say.
I'll look into
Yes.
our neighboring communities.
Okay.
Come up with.
And then once we come up with a procedure, we can lay it out, see what would look good. We can go through with you two about the proper wording. That would be good.
Yeah.
Should we do a rough graph on what we would like
Yeah.
to see it on it? Okay.
Yeah, and maybe Commissioner Coates can give it to the city manager ahead of time, and Gary and I can review it and provide some feedback. And then we can kind of go from there.
Yes.
I have all the time in the world. I'll get to you guys soon.
I know you do.
You know how busy I am.
Yes, we talk almost every day, it seems like.
We're best friends.
Okay, that is wonderful, and that's a great idea. I know that that was a large item. Luckily, the gentleman did not do anything with it. I was able to contact through a mail of him to wait until we figure out, so that did not go through at this moment. They will want to know why and some of the information for it, so I'm glad that we have something we can tell him. I think we learned a lesson not to say things prior and to lead people on for actually months and putting them off. Their patience is more than a virtue. So I'm very thankful. It could have gone other ways. So I'm hoping that we can get this resolved. Is there any other questions that we've had so far? I know we have a work session that we were going to be, and we were discussing from last commission meeting, and we had it on the commission agenda today, was to discuss our Airbnb as a work session, and then rules of procedure. But I think if we could think about the Airbnb, and I would really like to throw this out to the fellow commissioners and give them that without me lording over them or saying more things that shouldn't be said. But as a team, what kind of how we feel about it, and give us all the same kind of ideas on how to do this Airbnb.
Can I start?
Yes.
I think we should amend our current code and allow them outside of our general commercial area. Our Lakeside general commercial area is very small, and it's a single stretch of road, basically, from the road tracks to the lodge. And it's a county road, and there's not a lot of room for development of any significant Airbnb business in that whole area. I have personally installed houses all over Lakeside that are secretly being ran as Airbnbs because they fear that since it's outlawed, that they're going to get reprimanded by the city. I also see it as a good income source if we can start pulling in more transient tax off the Airbnbs. And in order to do that, we would need to allow them outside of more areas. I do see the concern of allowing them in our strictly residential zone because people want neighbors and not part-time guests. But we have a large recreational area, and I think that they should at least be allowed in the recreational residential areas.
Could I
And not just-
offer something on that?
There.
So the short,
Go ahead, Henry.
okay, yeah, so, short-term rentals are a conditional use, are an allowed conditional use in the recreational residential right now. They are not allowed in the general single family.
Yes.
At all.
But I don't think a lot of people here know that, because looking at all of our stuff, it says strictly general commercial, from what I can tell. Which is a very tiny part of Lakeside, very, very tiny part of Lakeside.
And no, it says that it could be in recreational, residential, recreational, or mixed. It doesn't say anything about multifamily, can't find anything for multifamily, but I do agree. General single family zone needs to stay that way.
But I do think that we should allow them to operate in more areas,
What
but.
areas would you think they could be operated in other than?
You know, I get the concern of the single family area. I'm in a single family area, but I honestly would not mind an Airbnb because it's probably better than my neighbors most of the time. And I'm the only person with children on my entire street except for his grandkids. But I can understand why people would want full-time neighbors versus partying summertime ATV goers or whatever. But I do see an opportunity for growth in income by allowing them to expand into these certain areas.
I also have this, thought, and let's just listen to the scenario here. We are a very small city. A lot of the residents do not stay here all year long. I don't know how, if it's 30% or whatever percent, but during the time when everybody is here, there's people, there's population, and they actually will patronize our businesses here. So it increases exposure, it keeps the city really going, as opposed to being very limited on a conditional on this Airbnb now, that we have a lot of people going and everybody closes down because there's not enough people to patronize our stores. Another thing is there's a lot of people who have let's say a $2,500 a month payment. And if they're going half the time in Arizona and the other time up here, that payment goes on and on and on and on. And so if they can find ways to, and obviously anybody who's want their house open are not going to let just any riffraff come in. There's going to be a lot of checking out people coming in. And they would also find ways to help pay for the mortgage, if that's what it would be, and also be here to patronize, I keep patronizing, that's what I'm doing, patronizing the city businesses here. So that might be something that it would be good. Plus having a lot more people, again, brings safety. Again, I like to think that the intelligence of our citizens would not allow the crap that would go in, just anybody to run their house. So I think if we gave them incentives, that whether it be in the residential or multi-use, it would be a very good idea to do that.
Can I add something?
Yes, Carl.
If you're looking at, that as, supporting the people, and you're talking about, snowbirds. The snowbirds have the option of monthly rentals,
Mhm.
and that's allowed no matter where you're at.
Mhm.
Airbnbs are less than 30 days.
Well, there you go.
And I'd like to add, I've rented a few Airbnbs in my journeys. If you are a bad guest and say you destroy the house and the neighbors are complaining that these people are loud or whatever, they get notified by the company, and basically, from what I can tell doing research, they won't be allowed to rent from those companies for after so many instances of just being naughty guests. They get noise complaints, traffic complaints, they destroy the houses, they're not allowed to rent through the companies anymore. And I know a few personal snowbirds, clients that would love to be able to rent their houses out when they're not here, and then be able to stay here in the summer and the winter, make the income, but because of where they're at, they fear that they will get in trouble, they're older people.
The other reason that I'm thinking of is once we allow these other, non-conforming, Airbnbs, if we can get them to be responsible and pay their dues or their fees to us, and see, we're losing money by not bringing them into the fold, and to take the phobia of scaredness and make them inclusive, and so that it's easier. I'm pretty sure that a lot of these people will want to be involved, knowing that it's no longer going to be something over their head, that they will be cooperative, and that those who don't would be minimalized, so that then we could find them quicker and penalize them accordingly. Is that something that can be done, Henry and Gary?
I'll let you take this, Henry.
Yeah, well, okay, so what you're saying is essentially if Lakeside amends their code to permit short-term rentals elsewhere in Lakeside, you'd want to grandfather in all the existing ones that are likely out there acting illegally, right?
Yes, to legalize them so that they can become responsible.
Yeah, so I think we could probably address that in the adopting ordinance, kind of stating out, okay, if you have an illegal Airbnb, the city is granting you a 1-year period to come into compliance and submit for your conditional use permit or whatever. I think that'd be fairly fine and fair. And you could require at that same time the transient tax form be filled out, business license or what have you, any kind of tracking the city wants to do. Kind of
Or you
allow
could
them like a
make them-
year to become compliant. Go ahead, Gary.
Or you could make them non-conforming uses. And if they discontinue for a year, then they're no longer allowed in that zone.
Right. And then that would force them to come back to you for a conditional use permit in the future.
Well, I guess the question is whether you want them in the single-family residential district or not. If you don't
Yes,
want
and-
them, if you don't want them there, you should make the existing ones non-conforming. Otherwise, make them a conditional use.
Well, I do know that we do have people that probably are in, do you think there are some within the residential?
Yeah.
That are using
There's a ton.
There's tons.
in the residential
Yeah,
zone?
there's some up by you stated last.
Yes,
not last
yes,
month. So you're.
yes. And they actually came to our meeting one
Yeah.
time to express why not, and they're doing it anyway.
Yep.
With my industry, I get to know people's neighbors quite a lot, and there's a whole lot of people who are doing supplemental income by renting out not only their houses or whatever. There's a couple of people in this town that rent out their driveways to campers for big events. And there's a website that you can do that as well, and you can pull an income, no different than Airbnb, but you're renting your driveway. So it's happening everywhere, but they're flying underneath the radar because they don't want to get in trouble for being where they're not supposed to be.
So we get them from flying out of the radar into the city hall to pay their
Yeah.
dues. That, to me, would be good.
Great.
We need to take the sneakiness out and bring it into the light. And I think once you do that, people around will also realize that, it'll stop a lot of rumors and that kind of thinking, and that sounds like a good idea. I don't know how we can implement or get those people to know.
I got a question.
Yes,
Since we have a new part-time employee in Sharon Baker, why can't the city staff, we're got a mandate here, we have a city manager and now another part-time assistant. Can't they go on the website, VRBO, Airbnb? Oh, have a program. Oh, there's only 17 listed in Lakeside. We know there's way more. So, your address, that's how we can get them into compliance.
But there's a lot more websites that you can rent these houses from than just the main
Yeah,
couple.
but they can go and you'll find, I mean, you can pull up RBO right now and find 60 of them here. in Lakeside.
But sometimes these websites, I think, was it VRBO, doesn't necessarily automatically collect the taxes unless the city goes through certain steps to collect these taxes. And one of those steps is to make sure that these people are compliant. And I think that'd be the first step, is making sure any new ones that come in automatically, follow the procedure and get the permits needed. And then from there, we go and find the ones that aren't, bring them up to compliance. Don't write them, threatening fines and stuff like that. Just make sure that they come up to compliance and that they're regulated, and, neighborhood complaints will go immediately through the company. So, I mean, there's steps away from it, but once you get everybody in compliance, then you'll be generating the transient tax and you'll have the business licenses and everything will be good. And then you have the option, if for some reason they're not complying and people are hating the people they're being rented to, then you can pull their, their ability to have them. No different than any other like conditional use permit, but without a conditional use permit.
Does this come into any play where there is would this become anywhere in like the enforcement part of it, or is it just something that, well, how far do we go with this? As far as trying to get everybody to come in compliant to the city? A simple letter, simple suggestion, a very friendly letter that says, please, we need this, and appeal to their senses, and that we can acknowledge. I mean, that's something that.
If,
I mean,
if I may interject,
Yes.
these rentals are subject to the transient lodging tax. And probably most of them don't pay that. So the city could fairly easily, well, it has the authorization to make these people pay that tax.
Okay, so we just need to take the steps. And I know we can find these people based on, how would we find everyone?
it's not hard.
Okay.
It's really obvious, like David said, there's websites, you can look for them, you can look at Craigslist, you can talk to people's neighbors. I mean, most of us know where most of these are. I mean, I know where most of them are, because a lot of them I've worked on or worked on their neighbors' properties. They're really not hard to find, it's just a matter of treating them like any other business. When their licenses are due, you send them a letter, you say, pay the fee, renew your license, you're not allowed to operate anymore in city limits, and it's done. Because I mean, they're a business, you just gotta treat them like one. They have to follow the same rules and regulations like any other business and homeowner.
So are we still trying to say that none in the residential area?
General single family. No,
David says general single.
Okay,
I say-
those have to be non-conforming.
I'd say anywhere, as long as they're being compliant and they're behaving themselves.
So if we follow David's raw idea, that would mean that we would have to go in there and find them and tell them they can't do it. Is that like 20 people, 20 homes that would not be doing it?
Maybe about 10 or 15, they're probably in the single family zone, I would say,
Probably non-conform them and let them get away.
but not allow new ones to
Not
come in.
allow new ones in general single family.
Basically grandfather the ones in who are already operating, and any new ones would be,
But they're still gonna have to come in for a permit.
yes.
Yeah, recreational, residential.
Where I think it doesn't
It's already
matter.
allowed there.
Lakeside's so tiny anyways,
It is.
does it really matter,
No.
like block to block, it's.
Now, this would also, you think, warrant we did go in there, a public, meeting,
Get neighbor.
get neighbor input? So we gotta figure out the procedure in which how to do this, what are our steps? The same steps as we've taken for the storage container interpretation.
Yeah, and
I have-
Gary and I can look into that and propose a plan back to the city manager as to how you want to address that. But so I'm straight, what I'm hearing is you want to leave Airbnb, short-term rentals as is. They are currently not permitted in the general single family zone, but the ones that may or may not be out there operating in that zone, you're fine with that. You just want them to become compliant and pay the taxes, and no new ones are permitted.
Correct, yes.
Seems to be the consensus of the commission.
Yeah, that might not require any changes to your code or meeting. It's more or less just code enforcement that the city manager can handle and the code enforcement officer.
Okay. I think comments that we have. It is a right down the middle, whether you like it or not. And how it's done. I would like to, again, this is gonna be something that we can continue. Again, we can push it through to our agenda, see what we've come up with. And then Sarah and, David could also come up, not turn it into debate, but, the idea of your opinions and Sarah's opinions. Of course, I don't want to negate Carl's idea.
Yeah, let's start.
He's very wise, and quietness is a power I give him. But I think that if there's questions that we can still go, I think this is not gonna be done all in one night. I'm glad that we're able to touch on this and see how we can proceed with this. So any other thoughts on this?
Yeah, I have a map where I believe that previous planning messed up on it and threw in a general single family behind City Hall. And it should have been mixed use or residential recreation, and that would allow more Airbnbs.
How many houses are behind this area? David?
Well, it's all right behind City Hall.
Yes,
Right here, it was light industrial.
that's right.
It was light industrial.
I hear you.
And now they put it all to general single, but they should have left it residential recreational, because then you would have all those Airbnbs, even with the mixed use.
And my understanding is Lakeside doesn't have an industrial zone at all.
No more.
When I bought my lot, I was told it was the last of the heavy industrial, and I'm next to the post office.
I know when we zoned this, we zoned it without having to have light industrial,
Yeah, because here's the
especially
original.
where Rachel went for the
Right.
light industrial.
But when you guys did that, it threw my lot from industrial to general commercial, which allowed me to use it the way I use it without a conditional use permit.
Oh, that should actually be recreational residential instead of general single family. Because this is what it is now.
No, where do we do that?
I think as we looked at that area and we said it's all single family residence. And we had input from the people from the number of people that lived over in that area. And they all agreed. That it was almost all single family.
Yeah, because I remember the old commissioner calling that substandard area.
If you look at it that way though, all of Lakeside is single family, because we don't have any duplexes or apartment buildings on a
Yeah.
single lot in this town. So if you look at it that way, all of Lakeside should be zoned as single family.
It's hard to be a single family when we're also been out in the Paradise Resort area.
We have a Paradise Resort in there.
Yeah, Lakeside.
Yeah. I mean, it just depends on how you look at it. I mean, we don't really have multifamily areas because we don't have a multifamily building.
No. No big.
We have double lots that people own, but the one house owns. We don't have apartments, duplexes. Nothing. All the house and a lot.
Huh, wow, I'm just thinking, my mind is kind of, it's going through all these items and how we can find some solution. And it sounds like we just keep pushing it towards another meeting.
I don't want to do that.
I like to just, I don't want to just keep pigeonholing our, but yeah, we'll put that in part of our, we'll call it step 2 or phase 2 on there, Amanda, on our ordinance and on Airbnb. And you feel, say, Henry, that there's no need to do any kind of ordinance change or code change because of what's existing, unless we want to change it to residential.
Right, yeah, yeah, I think that's outlined on topic 2. That's the 1, 2, 3, 4, that's how you're currently operating them in Lakeside. So if you want to change anything from that, you would amend your code, but that's what's happening right now. And it's everything that you said. you don't want them in the general single family. They aren't. They are permitted in the recreational, residential, and commercial.
Yes.
So,
Well, we can count how many houses are in that area, because they too are people who live there, or people who live there at this time. That probably recreate in during the winter, summer, and leave during the winter. That would open up more homes, people that want to come in and rent. So I know there's gotta be a certain thing that can be done. All right. Henry or Gary, do you folks have any other things, any suggestions, or wisdoms of what we can, that we have up to now?
sorry, what are you asking right now?
Any other items or thoughts of what we have done so far? Tonight?
Yes.
Yes.
Let me
Go ahead, Gary.
interject. Unless my hearing is bad, which it is, on item 4, you didn't make any changes to the agenda. And yet you spent a significant time talking about Airbnbs. So I think you probably should pay more attention to the procedures. And if you're going to add something that isn't on the agenda, have somebody make a motion to change the agenda.
Okay,
I also have one thing. You never made a motion on to accept the interpretation for the time being until the code is amended.
well, until further notice, I guess, is there a motion to keep the container interpretation as it stays at this time? Do I have a motion?
I thought they were rewriting it on page 3. Because that's what we had put. And I'd like to see the rewrite before I make a motion on accepting it.
I'm not aware of any rewrite of the memo.
I have it on page 3 from last month's September 5th meeting, rewrite interpretation bad. It says, where I put in quotes, it's staff's opinion that shipping containers for use as accessory structures in Lakeside is not a normal accessory structure and therefore should not be permitted as an accessory structure. A shed or detached garage is a normal accessory structure in a residential area in Lakeside. Not a shipping container, but it's not a shipping container, it's a storage container. And we
Okay,
had
so
decided-
the rewrite is the memo dated September 18th.
Okay, I have not seen that memo yet. And we're in October.
It's in your packet on page 3.
Yeah, we have,
Oh,
The one I got today.
yeah, the one you got today.
and this has been available for us since last week.
Not my packet, no.
Not him.
My packet only had 3 pages. This packet I got tonight.
Remember, we have this discussion.
Sorry, my bad, Henry, because I asked for
Okay,
that
no
rewrite.
problem.
We've been having packet problems. We've been working on it. Some of us have been getting incomplete packets in our emails.
Okay, so we're hearing from Gary that we need to do a motion on rule on storage container interpretation at this time, that we can actually work on a rewrite.
The memo was to give you a legal interpretation, which you don't have to agree with, because for one thing, I was addressing shipping containers, which is what I was asked to address. That doesn't sound like it necessarily fits what we're talking about now, which is a storage container. You
Correct.
don't have to do anything, frankly, but review the memo. If you strongly agree with it, you can adopt that interpretation until you change the code. But if you believe it doesn't really address the issue you're actually talking about, just ignore it.
So that then the people who have storage containers that are under 200 square feet properly put in, they have now, that it is permitted
Uh,
if we interpret
That's-
it as,
That's
You
up
said
to the
not-
planning commission. This was just an interpretation that you requested.
thank
Uh,
you.
You still need to address that issue. I mean, if somebody comes to you or has come to you with a question about whether or not they can put a certain size container in their backyard to use for storage, you need to make a determination of whether they can, because it's an allowable accessory use, or that they can't because it's not a normal accessory use. That
So
question seems to be before you at the moment.
We gotta change the code to allow that.
Or accept the ruling that we already gave the people that we said that they could have one, then we changed our minds.
Based on the information change was because of the way we handled it. My understanding was structures that were considered storage container, and based on the square feet of a structure of less than 200 or less square feet.
When I
Where does
installed my-
that square footage come from?
Our ordinance,
Our building code. Anything more than 200 square feet requires a building permit. I was told the same thing when I installed mine a few years ago.
And me,
and me. And it's
Okay,
in the
well,
ordinance.
that certainly makes sense. If you want to use the building code standards, that's pretty traditional way to address issues like this.
that is what I would like to see done, and that would save a lot of issues. But also we can actually, if we do put in, do we have, well, I don't know how that would be, are you all okay with that idea of using the existing code that we have for the 10 by 20?
That's what they used for me for mine.
Yeah,
I had to follow all the regular building codes. Since I ran power, I had to buy a separate electrical permit.
Yep.
I had to follow the same building codes. I had to paint it. I was told at the time by the city manager, so it didn't look like a shipping container, but reasonably storage shed. It had to be so far behind my building, I couldn't block alley access, yada, yada, yada. I had to follow all the regular building codes because they considered it as a storage shed, basically.
But I think we need to make a stipulation on what is a shipping container and what is a storage container.
Well, a shipping container is one that's in use for shipping. When they come off the boat and they're no
But
longer.
I think we gotta put that in our,
Make a definition.
that's for the interpretation.
yeah. So that we have to do. We have to have a session to do that.
At least define what it is that we're talking about, right? Is that what you're saying, Carl?
Yeah, well, yeah, if we're going to modify that code, we gotta tell them what we want in that code to be modified with. So somebody can do that.
Or as I understand, Gary was saying that we could use the existing code of our regular building code.
Which is what was used for me, and I don't mind it. I think
Yeah.
I mean, that seems to be the simplest instead of going over all these other items. Using the building code.
That's fine, but that doesn't address somebody coming in here and saying that they want to put a shipping container in. Because that's not allowed.
Then we can add to that.
We decided that it's gotta be a storage container. So now you gotta make a distinction between those two.
I call mine a Connex, and that's, that way it's neither one of those.
On it.
That's a brand.
So our interpretation, whether we understand it, Gary and Henry, is the fact that we gotta change the word from storage container from shipping container to storage container, and the size that we consider what a storage container is. So it sounds like we have to find a way to put it in words, what it's gonna be. Whether it's a storage container because it's going to be on a ground, it's never gonna be put into a ship again. It's gonna be altered or changed, so it's made for land use. I mean, I'm trying to figure out what, to get this thing moving along. and getting out of the play on words, how we can get this thing, put to bed, actually.
Well, I think it's easier to define a shipping container than a storage container. I think a storage container, just by definition, is a wider sort of thing. In other words, a shipping container can be a storage container, but a lot of other things can be a storage container as well. So probably the easiest thing to do is get a definition for a shipping container and see if that definition is something you care about or not. I'm not sure, there's a precise definition for shipping container. It probably applies to all kinds of metal containers that are used for shipping.
I think that we should just continue just regulating them with our regular building codes as if they're no different than a shed.
Yep.
And just be done with it.
I agree.
Apparently I'm getting the consensus of everyone that, commission, we just basically are going to go with, and I'm gonna let, Sarah interpret that.
I just think, mine was regulated no different than if I was building something or bringing in one of these prefab barns. I did have to follow certain rules that the city gave me, and no different than a prefab shed. It had to be on blocks off the ground. It had to be, no logos on it, all this stuff. But I still had to follow the same building codes. I had to meet the minimum square footage, otherwise I had to buy a building permit. I had to buy an electrical permit for the electrical. I had to follow the same setbacks, no different than a regular shed. And I think that's reasonable. I don't think, the big 40 footers, they will have to have a building permit because they're no longer considered mobile and they don't meet the square footage.
And then we can, okay, and then we have to also understand, how many of these units they can put in a backyard.
Some people have double and triple lots.
So per lot,
One per lot.
Maybe
One per
one
lot?
per standard city lot. Lakeside standard city lots are 75 across by 100 deep.
yes,
So say for every one of those, they're allowed one 10 by 20 shipping container in the backyard, not on street view, not in the city right away. They have a double lot, they can have two, triple lot, they can have three, one per lot.
What happens if they're on a corner lot and they have no fence? Then it's in their backyard. And
That's a little different, because then that can be interpreted as the side yard. The side yards require
you can choose
50
which yard you want to
Yeah,
decide.
it's a little different than, but they still follow the same building code.
Yep.
You still have your 5-foot setback from your property line, the 25-foot setback from the city
So what does
street.
this say about the regular shed that we have right now? Is that conducive?
It's the same for everything.
Yeah.
I had to follow the same conditions for my better built shed,
So if you wanted to
And
put
my
three, and you
comments.
can only put one per lot,
one per standard city lot.
right now, that's what's on there.
no, not for storage sheds. Storage sheds, I could put
You can
two.
put as many
I can
storage
put,
sheds.
I
as
can
you
put
want.
another 2 or 3 10 by 20 storage sheds on my property.
Yeah.
Because there is no ordinance that says I need how many I can and can't have. And that's what you're doing with the storage containers. If you're gonna limit them, you're now telling them how many they can have on their property.
And you would have to limit the storage sheds.
So what if they want to fill their whole property with shipping containers?
Well, Lakeside does have the zoning code that you cannot build on more than 90% of your lot. That would go the same for any storage shed or shipping container as well. You can't occupy more than 90% of your city lot.
Well, they would find a way to put on 90% of their lot.
But then they would be in non-compliance. And then it would be a code enforcement issue.
So can we use the existing ordinance for this issue that we have right now,
Yeah.
which would then keep us from addressing this for so long?
Yeah.
Then I would like to accept the fact that we can use do you think we still need to do the word interpretation?
But the interpretation says no.
We don't agree with the interpretation.
Okay,
We want to use the ordinance that's existing already that is inside our regular ordinance. our building codes that permit us to be able to put anything under 200 square feet without permits?
Okay. So your interpretation is that any accessory structure used for storage can be anything that doesn't require a building permit.
Well, no, you would use the building codes to regulate the storage containers no different than you would a storage shed or a house or any other dwelling unit or anything you put on your property. It still has to follow. So if it is more than, say, the 200 square feet, somebody wants to bring in a 400 foot, I think that they would still have to take the proper steps and purchase the building permits and go through the inspections and all that stuff, no different than if I was to build a garage. Is that something that is feasible? Or do we have to limit the size of these shipping containers and say nobody's allowed one more than 20 feet? I think it should follow our regular standard building codes. That's what I had to follow when I brought
That's what
mine
I
in.
follow.
And what size were they?
Well, mine's just wood. Mine was a prefab, 10 by 20.
And I have both. I have a under 200 square foot prefab, I call it my she shed. And then I also have a 200 exactly on the dot square foot, Connex, my shipping container. But I've actually bought a permit for both. And then later was refunded because they were told me I don't need the building permits. They're under the allotted square footage.
So what we're doing, so it doesn't affect, excuse me, the neighbors.
No,
I like to limit to a 10 by 20 size,
200.
now keep that in
200 square
mind.
feet.
Keep that in mind, though. There's a lot of people in town, including one of my neighbors that just brought in a 40 footer.
Then they need to get a permit for that.
That's what we need to decide. If
Right.
we want to use the standard building codes and regulate them no different than a regular shed.
Correct.
That should have taken
I'm good with that.
Yes, and I think prior, getting permits first instead of doing it and then putting
When
the,
I brought mine in, I came in and asked for permission. So I think most people should be doing that before they do anything on their property anyways, to double check that there isn't a permit or license or anything required, but it's Lakeside. I know a lot of people don't do that.
okay.
I mean, I could be completely wrong, but I think it should be regulated the same way.
So Henry,
Yeah,
you heard what we're doing and talking about.
Yeah.
Is this something that we're talking about? Is this something that we'd like to work it that way?
I
I think,
wouldn't recommend it. You're getting so specific now that you're really rewriting the code, not interpreting it. I think the best course of action is to define what's allowed, what is an accessory structure, or a storage unit as an accessory structure, and get it into the code.
So we won't have to rewrite the whole code, right?
I agree. And I put in the chat the actual language that is unclear and what you should be interpreting and what Gary used as a basis for his memo.
Okay, we're okay with that. David?
Okay with that.
Carl? Yep. Okay. So what's our next step?
We need to make a motion to, I guess, approve it until, or use it the way we're doing it now until we can write a definition later and.
Where does it-
So you're at a work session.
Do any motion.
Yeah. It has
We're
to
in
be-
work session.
Should they be making decisions here, Gary?
You can't make any decisions tonight, although they could do the interpretation.
Okay.
If they do an interpretation, that's a land use decision. But again, probably a work session is going to be the best way to refine what you want to do. Because
Yeah,
again,
and I agree.
again, the initial question was whether or not a shipping container was an allowable accessory use. And what we're talking about is a lot more specifics in regard to what's an allowable accessory use and what isn't, and under what circumstances. And we're basically rewriting the code. We're not interpreting it. So you can address shipping containers tonight, or you can just let the issue lie. I don't know how that affects somebody who needs advice at the moment. And then try to wrap this up in a work session, create some specific language and propose it to the city council as a change to the zoning code. Chapter 155.
Yeah, I
If we
agree. It's
have-
basically what Sarah said an hour ago. She was tasked with, okay, look at some code language and bring it back to the planning commission for consideration.
So I do have a question though. We did recently give permission to a gentleman for a under 200 square foot one in his backyard to store a car. While we're waiting to do whatever it is that we need to do, is he allowed to bring that in, or does he need to continue to wait? It's been a few months before he can bring one in, or can we interpret it for now so that he may bring one in or not bring one in? I would like to help this citizen out. I know he's anxious to get in because he plans on putting an antique car in it. He doesn't want to sit out in the rain. But I also want to make sure that we do this correctly. Are we allowed to grant him permission for a small one for under our current code? Because he'd be
Well,
using it as a container.
Okay, so your current code, accessory buildings and uses to the extent necessary and normal in a residential neighborhood. I don't know what he's proposing to put, but if the accessory structure is normal in a residential neighborhood, then that's fine.
Yeah, the gentleman wants to put an antique car in it to store it. So it doesn't get ruined by the weather, and you know, they're airtight, they don't allow moisture and stuff like that. So I would consider that a normal use since he'd be using it for storage as a storage container.
And it's under 200 square feet.
And it's under 200 square feet. It's an 8 or 10 by 20. So it's under the 200 square foot. It's also going to be in his backyard, and he has as well talked to his neighbors, and his neighbors don't have a problem with it, and it's not visible from the road. This gentleman is here. I just want to make sure we can get this resolved, or at least give him an answer, since it's been about 3 months that we've been trying to help him.
I think we gave them that answer last month.
But we revoked it.
What? Who did? Who revoked it?
Well, not really revoked it, but didn't Randy say that he told the gentleman he needed to wait until we got this settled to make sure that we were.
Correct. So until we had a definite.
And so we basically gave him permission and said, well, even though we gave you permission, we need you to wait until we have this straightened out. I would like to get this straightened out and interpret this now, so this gentleman knows if he can move forward and get this container in before the rains come.
I think he can move forward.
Because
I think
I'm
he can.
interpreting it as
I-
normal use of storage and
What, David?
storing.
I think he can continue. He's also in a residential recreation
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
Let him do it. It's,
I think, again, that's something that we over here, unless there's some. I mean, you could have done it anyway. Half the stuff that's done in this town isn't even
Yeah, but we want to start doing things right.
right.
We don't want.
So we want to do things right. We want to know if we have the blessing or the consideration of this during the time that we're deciding to finish up the interpretation of this, this code. And that was a question for Henry and Gary.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure I can offer much here because I have no idea what this accessory structure looks like, but I would just rely on the interpretation. Is it a shipping container?
Yeah, so Henry, it's what I call a connex. It's a prior use shipping container that has been converted into one of these storage containers, the big double lock doors that you can buy now at most places. It's a decommissioned shipping container being used as storage.
Which at this time, there are dozens here in the city already.
Well, if there's dozens already, then maybe it is a normal accessory structure in a residential neighborhood.
That's what I'm thinking.
And that's how I was.
That's
This
how
whole
we're
point
sure.
is mute.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. So it's a new idea that we can, in the future on our action item, we can, for future purpose, from now on, we can go with a storage container interpretation.
No wonder shipping container is not a ship.
I mean, what's the worst issue that we have with this particular item?
Are you asking me? What, I don't know. I haven't seen these in Lakeside, so I don't know.
You're always welcome to Lakeside.
Oh, thank you.
He's happy in Eugene, guys. He'll come here.
I'll be up there in a few weeks.
Well, put it this way, in your work experience, have you ever heard any issues or complaints coming from somebody having one in their backyard? As a city?
No. No, I haven't. I know, just for your awareness, I know some cities are use them, they allow them as structures for residences. That is a thing that is becoming more permissible, but so that has to be regulated through the building code. But people do want to use shipping containers to live in, and they have to be converted appropriately. But no, that's all I've heard.
And this gentleman has a very nice house. I don't think he plans on living in one in his backyard, so I don't think we need to worry too much about that.
Then he has a building code, he has to live up
Yeah,
to,
he don't want to deal with that. He just wants to stick a car in it. So it's safe.
not living.
Let's move on. Let's.
Okay.
Settle this.
Yeah, I move that we take this consideration out and move on to our next step and allow Leo to have his storage unit put in his back.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good with
You're
it.
welcome, Leo.
I was good with it last time.
Yeah.
We just have to make sure we dot our Ts and cross our Rs.
We don't want your neighbors mad at you.
Sorry, it took us 3 months and an hour and a half.
But I feel it's something done. Okay, so our next thing, session, and this is a work session. And I'm not sure, I was hoping that, our city manager would have been here, but I guess, so the rules and procedures. I'm trying to see where we go with that. Henry, have you talked with Krista concerning this issue?
I have.
This-
I have not. She wanted it put on this staff report again because it wasn't addressed at the last meeting. And I don't know where she was going with this. I don't know if the planning commission already has rules and they want to look at changing them or using what the city council has. So I just kind of drafted up a generic kind of overview of how you could look at this issue.
Well, I'd just like to actually put this on, push us back into forward into November. Unless there is something that's going to be,
I don't think we need to review it because we should all be following this handy dandy book, which is
Yeah.
the April 2015 edition of the Oregon Planning Handbook, filed straight off the Oregon's website.
Robert's rule.
We should all be following this. We don't need to rewrite our
No,
procedure.
right. I think we're just basically reviewing them.
Because this should be our standard.
Wasn't with an idea of
Rules
trying to, it was basically just to go over them and to validate what they are and to let it be put in practice and just instead of reading it, put it in practice from our taking care of our commission, respect among our commission, respect amongst our city government, and follow the proper avenues so that we can keep our meetings running smoother, our city running smoother, and the communication between our council people, the councilmen, as well as the commission, so that we can keep our line of communication open without any kind of bumps in the road that would cause us to have aggravation and misinterpretations that would cause us to fail. What we've been trying to do is to make this area rules and regulations proper. So like you say, based on what we have been having our Robert's rules, the Oregon, planning, I think we're okay. Is there
Okay,
any
yeah,
question? If not, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
No,
Oh, Counselor Comment. Commissioner Comment.
Oh,
comments.
Of course, I knew I was gonna get somebody to tell everybody was quiet, so yes. Comments?
Yes,
Yes, Carl?
I'd like to know what's happening with, hiring, or getting another counselor. Commissioner.
Oh, this is another one? This is.
Well,
doing
we're
business?
missing one.
yeah, we're missing one.
Yeah.
Where
And it's true, so this would be new business. We're done with rules, procedures.
well, it can't be new business because it's
It's been an
old.
ongoing business.
It's ongoing. I just, but I don't see it here. Well, I know we can't hijack anybody off the road to make them come here. I am thinking that we have put out all of the brochures. We have put things in our various organizations. I've known that I've challenged each and every one of you to at least meet one person or two to encourage them to come in. Has anybody done that?
Oh, yeah,
Okay, and what have you been getting?
nothing.
So we have a lot of people that we aren't saying that we're not trying, is that if we could get all the people who complained to join, we'd have more than enough people.
I do have a comment on this comment though.
Yes,
It's kind of a question for the two on Zoom. I pointed out to our city manager that her application that she released to the public not only said Lakeside citizens, but any citizen of Coos County, which I don't think is correct. She says she needs to broaden her prospects. Is this something that we can do by letting the people on the lake be involved, or does it need to be strictly to city limits residents?
folks at city, people that have to serve the city, me in the city.
Because when I asked her about it, she says that we need to broaden it to let people in, and that includes anybody in Coos County.
So
And I
are
just
you
wanna
asking what the planning commission should be comprised of, like who and where they live?
We are able to ask people outside of city limits, or if we have to keep following what we have written down in our codes that says it has to be a resident of city limits. She
Yeah,
told me that we are people.
I would
I'm asking you.
what established
Look at that.
procedures are.
Okay, so because I asked her if she could remove it and she told me she wasn't able to, and that we need to start thinking outside the box to get people to come in. And I just wanted to make sure that if we do have one of those people apply, that it is, I mean, okay for them, or if we need to turn them away because it was opened up to Coos County and we're not supposed to.
I know that that may have been a slip from what I understood. Right here, our commission, we have these notices. Persons interested in being considered for the vacancy must reside in the city of Lakeside within city limits.
Right, but the one she posted online said or Coos County.
I think that was a mistake.
She told me she was just going off of what she had in front
Yeah,
of her.
right.
Yeah.
And I talked to her about that, and it was definitely a mistake of her typing, so,
I do believe it's still up written.
yeah. Then she hasn't had time to correct it.
I mean, because if it is true, I know all kinds of people on the lake that would
Right.
like to be involved,
Yes.
but that's why I want to make sure, right, if they do apply, are we supposed to tell them no, because it was put
Yeah.
out there that they could.
No, just city of Lakeside.
Okay.
So the citizens of Lakeside need to be more and more encouraged, whether we go to various clubs, various other organizations, Lodi, the Lakeside Business, or any other place. That would be what I would think.
I heard you slip in up there and say Lodi.
I know.
He tried.
I live,
Yeah.
He wants to go back.
He wants to go back. I have a comment. I would like to get our camping ordinance started, since the Supreme Court, allowed grants passed. We have a lot of citizens, our homeless car people, we need to put them somewhere. We're gonna make someone in an area of Lakeside mad. We need to come up with a plan to put them, instead of them being all scattered. Holy Smokes Towing their storage yard's been hit 3 times in a month.
Now,
Because now he has many.
is that something that this commission has power over?
Writing a camping ordinance where time, place, and manner, yes, we do.
We already have an abandoned vehicle ordinance that was put
Yes.
in place in 1995. That's very strict that they do not allow it anywhere on any public street and will be towed immediately.
Our issue though has been always been, enforcement.
Yep.
I'm hoping that this is an issue that goes to, and may need to be more, proactive
But that's not us,
and
right?
reactive. in the
I
city.
agree that we need to do something, but I'm hesitant on doing anything until we can prove that we can enforce it.
Yeah.
There's no way we can enforce it. The enforcement that they're going through on the council right now,
So you agree with me that
it-
it's the
it-
ordinance for
it's-
enforcement? that-
yeah, it's
Yeah.
too slow.
Well, the city manager, that's the city manager's job is code enforcement. That's what they were hired for. It says it in their job description. She can,
We already have a bunch of these codes in place.
yeah, we do.
But the enforcement's not happening, but that's not on us. That's on the city council and they're doing their thing. And we would
They
all
have
love it to go
commissions.
faster, but we can't.
You're going to do a camping ordinance or abandoned vehicle or whatever type of thing. You need to do it when you detect it. You need somebody there to enforce it.
We have
You know?
general camping, no camping in general commercial, period. We see them camping at the Presbyterian church.
So that's something
That's
that
general
city
commercial.
council-
Who's going to get them out?
During the day, the city manager.
Mr. Chair, we're gonna sign off now.
Thank you very much for your
Bye.
time.
Okay,
We appreciate
okay. All
And
right, goodbye.
with you guys again.
All right, we'll follow up with the city manager.
Okay, bye Gary,
Bye.
thank you. Bye Henry.
Won't be the first.
Gentlemen, ladies, let's look at the fact here. The commission only has a point to point out the various codes and the ordinances. It is up to the city council, from what I've read, as well as their new city enforcement. In our codes, in our budget, we have budgeted a city person to come in, maybe not the city, but a code enforcement officer.
I believe it's like a hearing officer,
You're an officer and then you need someone to push it through.
but that's still not a.
No, it's not us. It's not us. So as far as the camping ordinance, please, you tell me what we as the commission can do about having a camping ordinance.
Okay, first of all, in that last document that we got from the state, it stated in there that you should refrain from making ordinances that you can't enforce.
Correct.
I agree.
And like I said, we have some that are on the records that still aren't being enforced. I mean, we have an abandoned vehicle, we have a car left on public property that doesn't belong there. We have some of these rules and ordinances already in place, but we just don't have anybody to go out there and enforce it. That's not on us, that's on the city council.
That's right. I'm hoping that the new mayor and the other people can rally around, do a little bit of enforcement ideas.
But if city council at any point in time comes to us and says, we're ready, write this, let's do it, then I think that's when we.
Right, we get direction.
I
But
mean,
as far as, David, if you're something that you find that we can do, I will.
I just hear from every single person.
The problem is that we know that we as a commission are limited of what we can do. We cannot make somebody do something. We can encourage by our codes and our ordinances.
We should have one ready, so when council does come to us, whether it's a new council or this council, which only has 2 months left,
Yeah.
says, hey, we want a camping ordinance.
That's fine.
Hopefully it doesn't take us another 3 months to write one like it has for a storage container. Poor Carl's waited 3 months.
I know, that's the same thing going on with everything.
I don't think it would take that long, since we are already, most of us are aware of what we need in this ordinance. And that we already have some of these ordinances on the book that just need to be tweaked to modern times versus 1995. I don't think it would take that long I see the need. I get it. I am super frustrated, just like everybody else. I have homeless people in front of my lot in the mornings, like, I get it. But honestly, unless the city council asks, we really can't do much. There's no point in writing it, and city council is not gonna go out there and enforce it and knock on doors and write fines or whatever it is we come up with.
So let's
It's
have the
pointless.
commission, look for items that we can see, from conception to completion. In a logical time, when we think about how many times we actually are here. If we just take it in a year point, that's 12 times. And if it's an average of 90 minutes, that's basically 20 hours. If that.
Throw in some
that
work
we throw
sessions,
in,
make this.
Yeah, we're probably
really-
happy to do extra meetings.
that's fine, Carl.
We
Okay,
asked this
so let's do this.
3 months ago.
Why don't we, and you have David, and there has just been a lot of throwback and feedbacks that is, so if we look at it, we can see what we can do, we can, and I've seen it, where we have the first Thursday and the third Thursday.
That was 6 years ago.
That's how it was. Now, we don't have to have it on, Thursday does not have to be the magic number.
No.
We can have it on a Tuesday, a Wednesday,
Or-
you know,
yeah.
we can have them in the afternoons. We can have them where it's convenient. You know,
The tavern.
we can have them at the tavern,
It's
yeah.
a work session.
Amanda says a tavern. No,
Come to
man,
my
no.
house.
I don't think it really matters, but I do think that we need to start working on something.
Well, let's find out an item that looks good.
I think we should start working on Airbnbs for these guys, and
Fine.
figuring out if they can or cannot do what they would like to do, and
You okay with that?
Yeah,
if they
like
can't
that
do
idea.
it, then
Yeah.
we need to figure out a way to enforce the ones that are out there now,
Right.
and figure out a plan for any in the future. These
So let's look at
these guys have
ideas.
been waiting a long time.
Let's look at the fact of our, you guys have interest in Airbnbs?
Yeah,
Yeah, the zoning got changed while we were in contract buying the house. That
Oh,
was pretty cool.
what,
Oh, that's
what,
good.
zoning were you in before?
Light industrial.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, you got
Oh.
changed to blue and it,
so
I have a map that,
It's just so you
is it just residential?
know, says that even when you're in contract, your city is supposed to notify current buyer
yeah,
of that.
I know.
and then I'm sure.
Okay, no one did.
It's something that we have fought.
Yeah.
We just want to be in compliance
Yeah,
We want to help this community.
and we.
Um,
Make them stay alive.
So you're living in a zone area that's not commercial, residential, I mean, not, is it residential, commercial?
It's-
Or is it residential, recreational?
Okay,
No.
it got zoned general residential, but in Carl, it's
General.
incorrect that the members came from the city. The reason that the members came from the city is they were all sent letters in November from the city saying that their insurance policies were gonna get canceled because they lived in light industrial. And if anything happened to their home, it would not be covered by their insurance policy. The city person that used to sit there is the one that sent out that letter illegally, not true.
How long
Your
ago was
insurance
this?
Will
Almost 2 years
cover
ago.
you almost 2 years
Oh,
ago.
2 years ago.
It was when, we were transitioning from, yeah.
And then they just changed
It
the.
was between Andrew and Lori, and we all know how that went.
Well, the problem is they didn't change the map, because you went online and look at everything, and even weeks after we closed, the map still showed that we were in industrial, light
Right.
industrial.
And they were improperly informed.
So are you interested in using Airbnb?
Yes.
Do you come here, you don't live here all the time?
No, we don't live here all the time, no.
I've seen him here before.
I know, they look familiar.
And they've been coming to all of our meetings for almost the entire summer, because they
Yeah.
like to try to get this taken care of.
Well, that's interesting.
Again, 3
Yeah,
months ago.
So let's make it a, how about on Thursday of the third Thursday of the month? At 4 o'clock. Amanda,
We were, oh, sorry.
what time do you guys get off?
We,
We
you
were-
guys said the day we'll be here.
Yeah, we work
Well,
virtually.
basically, it's gonna be discussion and we're gonna find out, I don't want you to feel that we can be able to
Sure.
do things, but if you wanna be in the mode of this thing, it'd be good. I'm glad to hear this.
I know, right? where that-
I'll be talking with the city manager. But Amanda, we need to figure out if it's okay, our timing. We would like to have it basically the third Thursday of each month. Now, did we do did we not, during December, did we have a 5 month?
No, it's because of the new year, the way the first fell on. It was actually July, because in July we had, that meeting.
That's right. We had it on the 4th or something.
Yeah, because it was July 4th and
yes,
it was the
okay.
first Thursday and we kicked it to the end of June.
Yeah.
But last year we did all of our meetings in December and January.
So could you, Amanda, inform us what date would be the best? We're okay, and just let us know, how these folks know. If we were saying that I'd like to do it on the 3rd Thursday or the,
That'd be the 17th of October,
yeah,
third Thursday.
yeah. I don't have anything going. I have, yeah.
I don't have a life, I just work. I'm always available, I work in town, yeah, it's sad.
Okay, we're still being recorded. Are we still meeting still on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we okay with that? On the, all right,
I just would like to get something figured out for this.
so let's look
Yeah.
at, let's do it for the whole people is right, thank you. But also let's look at the Airbnbs again, and as far as ordinance, and make that our topic.
Can we look at that zoning too with those Airbnbs?
If that's what it is.
Cause that's where they're at. They went to general thing.
Airbnb, were you gonna check out the Airbnb?
You had me on the shipping container,
And,
Oh,
yeah,
and I've already
I
done
don't want you to
that.
do, okay, so you're done with that? We're done?
But if you want
You
to,
graduated?
I
Okay,
graduated.
Airbnbs. I'd like to know how many there are.
Okay.
You all would want to know how many there are,
well,
really.
on the website, there's at least 17 to 20 that are
Okay.
registered.
I'd like to know where they're at. Circle of the zone area.
I can tell you where one.
If you know,
Google.
anyway, present it
Okay.
on that day.
So you're giving me basically 2
2 weeks.
weeks. Thank you, I appreciate
Well,
that.
since it's a
I'll come
small
with
town,
something.
and if you need help, David would be glad to help.
I'm sure David would love to help me. He's itching to get into it.
So that's what we like to do, an hour or whatever it takes to do that.
Okay,
I think it's a
let's start
discussion
at
that we
4.
should have.
Can we start at 4? Killing my riding time.
You don't need to do it right, and it's almost raining season.
Dude,
I wanna go, see a sunset before the rain comes.
Who's on with you?
Anyone who wants.
Probably me.
You, my daughter, my grandchildren.
Probably you, probably.
Okay, you're more than welcome, yeah. I have a 4-seater side by side, my friend has. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so anyway, if there's nothing else to do,
Did you have a comment? We heard Carl's comment, we heard David's comment. I don't have any comment.
I have.
Well, we heard Sarah, she can talk.
I've ran my mouth enough
Okay.
tonight.
All right. Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.
Would you like to see this
Yes.
map?
Also, make sure that our map of